Welcome to Game Guys, I'm your host Bricks, and today we're going to be going over the current state of the game for Hell Let Loose as of February 4th, 2021. Before we get started, I'd like to give a special shout out to our friends at Team Asylum Gaming. You can check them out at discord.gg/Team Asylum. Welcome to the beginning of our State of the Game series, where our goal is to give you the most up-to-date, real-time information regarding your favorite alpha games, betas, open access, or even just recent updates and hotfixes. In today's video, we're going to be covering the state of the game for Hell Let Loose as of February the 4th, 2021, based on three broad but simple categories: current issues and bugs, recent improvements and pros, and finally general stability and gameplay. If you find this information useful, consider liking and subscribing so you always get the most up-to-date content from us. Also, don't forget to let us know in the comments below what you want to see next. Now grab your binos and let's get looking into the current state of the game for Hell Let Loose. To start us off today, we're going to be covering the current issues and bugs seen throughout the game. As we go through these topics today, please keep in mind that everybody's system and internet connection is a little bit different, so these can affect different players in different ways. The first issue we're going to talk about is foliage rendering. This is something that the devs have and are actively working on, and I do strongly support the ability for people to be able to play whether they're on a high-end or a low-end machine. But where the issue lies is when players with a high-end machine turn the graphics all the way down to low and can basically see you crawling through what would be grass and other concealment. Next up, we have the infamous reload bug. This happens when you reload any type of weapon and then you go to fire and you have nothing in the chamber. This can be extremely frustrating, but shout out to Grasden from Team Asylum Gaming for filling me in that if you hold down the R button instead of just simply tapping it to reload, that this typically stops the issue from happening. The next bug on our list is the loadout bug. I personally have seen this bug a lot less frequently in games lately, but nevertheless, it still does happen. And this is when you select a certain loadout, such as Grenadier for example, as the assault role, and you end up with the first loadout instead of the one you actually chose. There's a lot of workaround examples that I've heard people talk about from time to time, but the one that typically works best for me is to just switch to another role completely, such if you're on assault, switch to rifleman, load back into the game, and then switch back to the role that you're trying to get. The next issue I see talked about a lot has to do with player markers. I personally am a huge fan of how the player markers actually get smaller as the player gets further away now. However, if you set these markers to 500 meters, they don't actually show you up to 500 meters. And the only known workaround for this is just knowing what the other team's uniforms look like. This more so affects tank crews and recon because they have weapons with zoom, but this does affect the infantry because they're the ones getting shot by them. Up next we have VoIP, or in-game chat issues. Can you hear me now? There is an in-game chat function, and this appears to be a lot less frequent in the last few days, but this issue is affecting players on an individual basis inside of servers, which can really hurt the immersion and the quality of gameplay unless you're in something like Discord. Keep in mind though that at the time of this release, the devs have already put 3 or 4 messages out talking about this issue, and they're hoping to have it fixed by this weekend. The next issue we run into is more of a personal pet peeve, and that's the M1 carbine. In my opinion, its damage drop-off rate was nerfed far too much, and this needs to be increased again. Moving into armor. We're not going to talk about tanks getting stuck because we just know that happens right now. But right now, the hitboxes seem to be off on the tanks. I was actually trying to get some footage for an armor video, and noticed that sometimes the hits just simply would not register. Maybe it's just me, maybe I'm horrible at armor, let me know in the comments below. I do however know that the devs are working on an armor rework, so this should easily resolve itself in the future if it is an issue. And our last issue is a negative and a positive, and that is a large influx of new players. This is a negative because a lot of players play this game very seriously, and this can make public or pub matches very frustrating. Quick, one-sided games, players that don't use communication, know the aspects of the game, and don't take advice and instruction from more veteran players, can really test your patience. But don't forget, we all started somewhere, and hopefully videos like my guide videos and others out there will help these players learn the game, along with just playing with the community at large. Now let's switch gears and get into the recent improvements, fixes, and other pros. The first of which I would like to talk about is our positive and negative issue from our last segment, a large new player base. This is in and of itself a good thing. You can make the best game in the world, but if it's multiplayer and no one plays it, there's not really a whole lot to do. Just as a comparison, many players compare this game to Postscriptum. The last I checked on battle metrics, Postscriptum had around 500 and something odd players, and Hell Let Loose was hovering well over 6,000. This large influx of new players also brings me to my next point, which is that friendly fire has been slightly nerfed. Now, if you get hit by a friendly tank or artillery, then you're still going to go the way of the dinosaurs. But this does really help the new players who may make a slight mistake to not catch too much grief for accidental team kills. Don't get me wrong, I love the friendly fire system in this game. I think it should be unforgiving, but this was a really good implementation in my opinion. Another pro for the current state of Hell Let Loose is its many communities around the world. There's really no time, night or day, that you can't find a server open, whether it's European, Asian, US, or whatever. Not only are there always servers online, but most of these communities have an active Discord or Facebook or something of the like to help their members stay active and engaged. These communities also work well between each other to try to create events, seasonal tournaments, and things of the like to bring a new competitive aspect to the game. And one of the primary focuses of every community I've had the pleasure of meeting is to grow the community, grow engagement, and grow the game. Hell Let Loose really has a great community of great players who really want to help each other succeed and have a good time in the game. Speaking of servers, by the way, there was a recent fix so that servers that were not shown in the server list in-game are now showing up in the server list properly. The Hell Let Loose devs really make it a priority to make sure that they're engaging with the community, and when there's an issue, that they're letting them know where that issue is at and when it's going to be fixed. That, and they love to show off their teasers of their new upcoming content, such as the Eastern Front. And other than the VoIP issue, which is being worked on actively, I personally have seen no issues with the massive rollout of all the updates that happened in Update 8. The new mechanics seem to be working well with each other, and seem to be a hit with the community. And the current state of Hell Let Loose has a very robust role selection and progression system. It's very time consuming to get where you're trying to get level-wise, and to unlock certain roles, but it's not grindy enough to where it's a pain to actually try to achieve. This also encourages players to play the role that they choose instead of doing something else to get the points. And now we've reached the verdict on the current state of the game for Hell Let Loose. Considering this is an early access game, it's extremely stable and has a very good anti-cheat system. And as mentioned earlier and in some of my other guides, there's an enormous amount of strategy and gameplay that can be implemented, and then events and seasonals that can actually be created throughout the community itself. That being said, and after weighing all the pros and the cons discussed in this video, it's my humble opinion that the current state of the game for Hell Let Loose as of February 4th, 2021 is great. There's a lot to do and a lot to enjoy, all for a price point of right at $30 US. And the game is on sale quite regularly on Steam. In fact, if I had to put a letter grade on how this game is doing currently, it would be a solid B. Yes, there's a lot that can be improved, but luckily this game comes with a very strong community and a strong dev team that works to make the game more polished and better than ever. Thank you for watching the video, and consider subscribing if this is the kind of content that you'd like more of. I'd highly recommend you give this game a try, and when you do, we'll see you in-game.